Okay, well, thanks everyone for joining us today. Really excited about our guests today, and awesome to build on our world-class athlete, sort of town halls from last week and the week before with Maddie and the women's 4x4 team. So really happy to introduce Sarah Mitten and Brittany Crew, although neither of them need introductions. Sarah is the current U23 Canadian shot put record holder. She's had several outstanding performances in 2019, which earned her titles of the 2019 Shot Put World Championship Qualifier, 2019 World University Games Champion, and the 2019 Canadian National Silver Medalist. She's also a 2020 Olympic qualifier and 18th in the world rankings. Brittany Crew is the Canadian shot put record holder at 19 meters, 19.28 meters. She's a four-time Canadian national champion and a 2017 and 2019 World Championship finalist. She earned the 2018 Commonwealth Games bronze medal and the 2019 Pan Am Games silver medal. She's the 2017 World University Games champion and the 2015 World University Games bronze medalist. During her time at York University, she was named Athlete of the Year 3 times. Brittany is a 2016 Olympian and a 2020 Olympic qualifier. Brittany, Sarah, thanks for joining us today, guys.
Thanks for having us.
I think we're both excited. We haven't seen each other in a while, so we get a little socialization too.
Perfect. Maybe I'll let you guys take the floor right away, and maybe we'll start with you, Sarah, and if you want to take 2 to 3 minutes and tell us your story of how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so for me, I don't know if some of you may know or not, I actually grew up in Nova Scotia. So I started out my throwing career through Athletics Nova Scotia. I started when I was in grade 8, so I would have been about 14 years old. And I had already been participating in track for about a year or so, but I was, didn't really know what shot put was. I had been, long jumping, hurdling, kind of all of like the events that you see like a lot of the times when you're first introduced, a little bit of sprinting. And then my second year when I went into grade 8, I had this coach at my school, and he was involved with the track team, but not really, but we had a good relationship. He coached me in basketball. So he came out and asked if I wanted to just give this a try. Like, he knew that I'm pretty athletic, not so, not too shabby at picking new things up. And he got me to throw this ball, and it was only, I think, a couple days prior to our first, like the local district meet of the year. And I picked it up and I had thrown it, and it didn't look too great, probably from, that standpoint, but it wasn't terrible. We actually had a local athlete, Chelsea Whalen, who had come through my school, and she actually ended up going to Florida State as a javelin and shot put thrower. So she had kind of like led the way. So they kind of saw that it didn't look obviously like what Chelsea was doing, but they saw a little bit of potential. And I got sent to that first district meet a few weeks later, or a few days later, sorry. And I ended up breaking one of the local records. And right from there, I kind of got scooped up into the track and field world. I was recognized by like a coach in Bridgewater, which is about 35 minutes away from my hometown. And she had me coming to practice 2 or 3 times a week every year, every week since then. So she really helped get me into it. And then that summer, I actually qualified for my first Legion national team. So then I went through there. My first experience there was a little rough, to say the least. I remember myself crying in between rounds because I wasn't throwing very well. I was definitely a little fish in a big pond. I've only been throwing for a few months, but from there I went on the next year, and I ended up getting a silver medal the next following year at the Legion National Champs. Everything sort of progressed from there. Just continued training 2 or 3 times a week with my coach Tammy in Bridgewater. And then I ended up going to the University of Windsor in 2014 to start my university career. And from there, I ended up competing with Windsor for 4 years. I ended up winning the CIS or the U Sport Championships in 2018, And then after that, I moved to Toronto to work with Richard. And then I went through the national team system, slowly developed from there. In 2018, I started rotating. So Richard had switched us from the glide to the spin, which took a little bit of time to learn, to say the least, but things have gone really well since then.
Fantastic, thank you. And Brittany, I'll let you take the floor, kind of, if you don't mind, going through your journey to where you are today.
Sure. Yeah, mine looks a little different than Sarah's. She kind of got into it a little bit later on, I guess, especially with the national team programs and stuff like that. In Ontario, we have a little bit more of an advantage over Nova Scotia, obviously, because it's just a bigger pool of athletes and more funding and everything like that. What happened was I was a pretty high-level soccer player, and I got introduced to the shot put in elementary track and field. So fun fact is that in grade 5, I didn't even throw the shot put grade at all. Like I didn't even make the team for shot put. I was actually an 800-meter runner and long jump in 200. So that was interesting. And then when I went to middle school, so I was in grade 7 and 8, my guidance counselor, which was also my soccer coach for school, I was a big girl after I went through puberty and everything. So he was like, you should try shot put because I think you'll mess up the competition. You're a big, strong girl. You're athletic. You're agile. Never mind the 800 meters. Let's put you in shot put. So I tried shot put and I picked it up pretty fast. Yeah, I picked it up pretty fast and I was pretty explosive because I switched to from midfield to striker. So, 30-meter sprints, like like as soon as you get the ball, you're sprinting, you're moving like that. So energy systems were changing a bit. And so, yeah, grade 7, I ended up winning city championships. I was losing at every district meet leading up. This one girl just kept beating me. And then I finally got her at the city championships. And then in grade 8, I must have thought that I was like the big shot. So I didn't train as hard. And then I got second at city championships. And then I went to Birchmount Park Collegiate. So there's a special sports program, Birchmount Exceptional Athlete Program. So it's a specialized program, and I lived about 40 minutes away from the school via TTC. So they had a rule that you can't play your top sport, because if you do that, then you'll have like all the provincial level soccer players going to that school and no one will win OFSA. It will destroy the competition. So that's what was happening in the past. So they made a rule that said you can't play your top sport. So I couldn't play soccer in the spring. So I decided that I was going to do track and field because I was pretty good at the shot put thing, and that's the only thing I could think about doing. So fortunately, the shot put coach was Shane Risto. So he went to the Paralympics in 2000 and 2004. So it was pretty easy for him to pick me up, and he knew enough to be able to develop me pretty fast. So he picked me up in grade 9. I trained really, really hard, but I got to OFSA, and it was my first big competition, and I didn't even make the final. I was actually in medal contention, and I totally flopped it. So after that, I was just like really upset. I was crying, and he just told me, like, if you actually train all summer and you work really hard, you'll win next year. So that's what I did, and I ended up winning in grade 10, and then I ended up like wanting to like pursue soccer more, so I quit for grade 11, but then I realized that I really loved it, so I came back for grade 12, and I ended up getting a scholarship to Eastern Michigan. So we went to Eastern Michigan, and I got pretty badly injured. I partially tore my ligament in my elbow, my throwing arm. So that particular injury could be career ending in a way. If I fully tore it, I would have had to have like Tommy John surgery, which is a surgery that a lot of baseball players get, and it's very hard to come back from. So I was fortunate enough to have a partial tear, so I didn't need surgery, but that took a toll on me mentally, and I ended up not wanting to go back to Eastern Michigan. So I came home, And I was to the point where I wanted to quit again, but I saw this documentary, and it was like Olympic comebacks, and this girl like tore her ACL in the moguls like right before the Olympics, and the next Olympics she came back and won gold. So that motivated me, and I reached out to Richard Parkinson at York, and it kind of went from there, you know. So.
Interesting. You know, I'm sure nobody, you know, from what I understand, at least, nobody really loves to be an 800-meter runner. So that's probably a good switch to make.
You know, it was just the best thing for me because I had a really good kick, and I had enough endurance. I wasn't fast enough for like a 200 or 100, but I was able to like jog enough and then just sprint the last 200 and pass everyone. So yeah, had to do something.
Listen, obviously it's worked out, that whole pathway, so you know, can't complain.
Yeah.
Before I keep going, I'll just ask everyone, I forgot to mention before we started, we did have questions come in while people registered, but if there are any other questions, feel free to just message them in the chat, and once we get to that portion of the conversation, then I'll be able to go through those and get through them. So we'll just ask everyone to hold any audio questions and just put them into the chat. So Brittany and Sarah, like, you know, we chatted offline last week, and you know, you two are two of the first qualifiers for the 2021 Olympic Games. You know, can you speak to, you know, what that means to you, and sort of, you know, does it change your mindset at all going into the next 12 months, kind of knowing that you have that secured spot?
Of course. For me, it's my second Olympics, so for me to qualify right away, it's going to take the stress off of both Sarah and I going into next year, because we know that we're secured, so we can just train hard, and as long as we go to nationals and come top two, we're going to be selected. So I know this is Sarah's first Olympics, so I'll let her take over because this is most exciting for her. So
yeah, for myself, like Britt said, it's my first time qualifying for the Olympics. So in February, when that happened in Auckland, it was like a huge accomplishment, probably, you know, the highlight of my career thus far. It's something that, you know, you've been working for 10 years, and finally, you know, it happened. I achieved it. But I really don't think that it changes the focus or anything for next year, because I'm still going to have to work equally as hard to be able to come in as strong as I can be for my first Olympic debut. So I think, like Britt said, like for us, it gives you like that peace of mind, and it might take the focus off of qualifying, which could be really great. I mean, that pressure it's pretty heavy, especially when, you know, you put your life on hold and your heart out there to make the team. So I think it could be really good giving another year. We'll be able to like just focus on, you know, throwing as far as we can, knowing that we have that kind of qualification in our back pocket. Things will really like pan out well, I think.
Mm-hmm. And Sarah, is there you know, a sense of calming, or does it put you at ease knowing that you have, you know, Brittany already been to an Olympics, you know, kind of knows what's going on. Obviously each Olympics is different, as we've talked about, but you know, is there a sense of ease knowing that you have someone who's been there and show you the ropes?
Yeah, that's been the case for pretty much my whole experience on the international scene. I know Britt can comment on that too. Like, she entered into that world kind of leading the way, like on her own. Whereas I've been really fortunate making my debut, like even my first big senior team FISU in 2017. Britt had qualified too, so we got to travel like there together. And then, I mean, everywhere almost up until now, there's very few times that we kind of go our own way. But for me, it's been really good kind of having someone like who's been there to show you, you know, how it all works, and just like a sense of like ease knowing that they've experienced it. And Britt has given me, oh my gosh, through the years, so many pieces of advice and tidbits, and really helped me. So yeah, it's really, gonna be nice knowing that, I mean, we're friends and training partners. Having that there will be a big sense of calm, I think.
Yeah,
Great.
and I just want to touch upon the fact that, like, even though I had to figure it out on my own because I was leading the way, I was fortunate enough to have my actual, like, the older women on the international scene kind of take me under their wing and show me how it works, you know? They because when you go to Europe, right, it's the first time is a huge experience. It's way different than here. Like, they pick you up on shuttles, they shuttle you to the hotel, they put you up for free, they feed you, they give you the meat packets, right? And if Richard's not there doing that for me, I had to figure it out on my own, right? So the girls really helped me, and you know, they didn't have to do that, but the camaraderie in throwing is amazing.
Yeah, and that being said too, I mean, Richard has also been to the Olympics, so having both of them have that insight, and Rich having like a firsthand experience there will give us a good advantage. He's always very in the know about everything going on, but having him be able to experience that with us and be at all the meets is also a huge help.
And it helps that he's super organized, so we really know what's going on all the time, right? So he's very on the ball. He's very great at planning. So that makes it super easy for us athletes to just follow the plan. And there's no stress and anxiety when we're traveling because we've got it all laid out for us.
Right. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I guess as an athlete, the last thing you want to do is have to worry about the million things before the competition.
No.
And Brittany, we chatted last week a little bit. And, you know, you've been to the Olympic Lab. You've kind of seen, you know, what is in store for Tokyo. Can you speak to, you know, some high level stuff, what you're expecting, differences from your previous Olympics to now this one?
Yeah, so I don't think it's a secret. Like, even we went, Sarah and I and a few others went to this Can Fund luncheon thing, and who was there? It was someone from the Tokyo like Olympic Committee, I think.
Okay.
And she gave some insight of like what we can expect in the village, which was really cool. So there's going to be like the village is huge, right? So
Mm-hmm.
There's like shuttles that take you around the village because us athletes are lazy, and you know, some people take it literally a couple stops. It's like maybe 500 meters to get to the dining hall, and people will jump on it. We're Olympic level athletes, and we're not walking to the dining hall. So these shuttles, usually people drive them, and it's going to be a self-driving shuttle. So like kind of like Tesla, like auto. Do you want to talk about the beds or something, Sarah? Do you know? I told you about
You'll
the beds.
probably give the better explanation of that.
Okay.
Actually, like first.
Yeah. I just don't want to talk too much, but so the beds are going to be super cool. Tokyo has taken recycled material from the ocean, and they have made all of their beds from the recycled material. So apparently we're going to get scanned when we come in, or we're going to body scan us, and they're going to figure out the densities from your bottom to your middle, to your torso, to your head. And these mattresses flip over, and they have different densities, and they're 3 pieces, and they recommend the best bed for you. So super pumped about that, because every single time I go to the village, I used to a soft bed, and it's always brand new hard, and it hurts my back and it stresses me out. So I'm excited about the bed. And the other thing was there's going to be robots that walk around and interact with you, or roll around. But
that's bizarre, but very, very cool. Very cool. Good. Sarah, I just had a question written down for you here, and I can't remember my notes here. But going into your first Olympics, you know, like we just talked about, you know, Brittany has that experience, but you both kind of touched on, you know, Richard Parkinson, your coach, really being impactful for you guys, both as, you know, coach technically, but also as someone who's you know, experienced this before, helps with scheduling, planning, things like that. So, you know, Sarah, if you don't mind just speaking to, you know, that as someone who, you know, has only been working with Richard now for a few years, How has that impacted you as an athlete, and what benefits has that had for you?
Yeah, so my experience working with Richard has been really neat, because as you mentioned, like he's been doing this long before I sort of joined the team, sort of joined the group. So he has a lot of prior and former experience with Brittany and some other athletes at that level and at that kind of taking athletes. Like, I mean, he took Britt and developed her the whole way. So he had a lot of experience already and a lot of tools in his toolkit to kind of, be able to recognize, at the time when I joined Richard, I was had barely, I think, thrown over 16 meters with the glide. And for him to be able to, like, within a year, teach me the spin and take me from sort of this national level athlete, making the teams, being a good competitor at nationals and taking me into the international scene. I think that speaks a lot to his character because, that's a whole new technique. Like, he had to identify if I was able to even do it. And I mean, we took a risk with it, but I think a lot of that is from like the experience he's had. I mean, Britt was already a spinner when she got there, but they've had to, overcome many like technical obstacles and figure out what works for them. And I think it's been really neat because he's been able to apply sort of that, but with a shift. I mean, we're both very different rotators, but he's been able to kind of use some of the knowledge and experience that he's gained through that and some of his mentorships to really guide me along the way. And then in terms of like the experience that he has, I don't have to go into any international meet blindly. He's done a really good job preparing me from the beginning in terms of like what to expect in like the village. Even Britt was talking about the bedding. Like, you think you're going to go away on this trip and it's going to be, you're going to be treated like a professional athlete. And sometimes, something as silly as the bed not being comfortable, you don't sleep as well. And just like getting you ready for, what to expect and get, prepared, I guess, for all of those little challenges and snags that you're going to encounter on these trips. So he's been, really great pulling all that together so that you're not kind of at a loss.
I'm just reminiscing, sorry. This is to do with the bed. So I don't know if I was at Commonwealth Games and I was just overwhelmed. I get really overwhelmed easily with a lot of people. So the first week was okay, but the second week was starting to get on my nerves. And I think it wasn't the bed that was the problem. It's just like, I was getting so crazy and so upset that I had it in my head that it was the bed's fault, that my back was hurting and everything. So I made Richard take me to go get like a pad, a mattress foam pad. And I went and bought it and I left it there. But I needed something to like put myself at ease and a bigger pillow and stuff like that. Because, sometimes you go there and the pillow is like a little square and that's all you get, right? So,
and did that help?
Oh, yeah, instantly. Yeah. But it's just like a peace of mind thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Athletes can get really crazy at some point with when we're getting closer to competition. So,
would you say you're superstitious in that sense, or?
I think I used to be a little bit, but I do think the bed's got to be a big thing for me. So
for sure.
And sometimes I bring my own pillow, and Richard like laughs at me because I have my own pillow and blanket and.
Just gonna start bringing a whole mattress with you when you go places. Sarah, I wanted to follow up a little bit with something you had said just earlier there. I think a lot of athletes go through those shifts, those challenges, whether it's a thrower, a sprinter, maybe transitioning to a different event, things like that. You said you went from the glide to the spin. That can be really challenging for someone who's already performing at a very elite level to then say, okay, I'm going to overhaul, what I'm doing and try to make a conscious shift to be better long term. How did you handle that? Obviously you probably weren't throwing as far at some point, but knowing that something was going to pay off. How did you go through that mentally?
Yeah, I had put a lot of trust in Richard. I was fortunate that I met him back in, I think it was 2015. He had come out to New Brunswick actually and did a throws clinic. And I was fortunate enough, my coach drove me to New Brunswick and we got to attend. And I remember that day actually, he, with against my coach's knowledge,
Should I stop recording this part?
no, it's okay. She knows now. She knew after. He had me try out the spin because it was like, even that day, he was like, I think long term, that's your solution. Like, that's probably going to be your way into, that next level. But I was going to school in Windsor at the time. So I went back to university, continued gliding. My coach there, Tina, we didn't want to make a big change because I was, like you said, I was already throwing, in the 15-meter range, which was like fairly good for Canadian university. So we didn't want to take that under. And then when I had moved full-time to work with Rich, he decided the same thing, that, he wanted me to gain experience over making that switch first. So that would have been in the 2017 when I had qualified for FISU. We had made the agreement that I would continue to glide in hopes that I make the team as a glider so that I can gain kind of that, like that confidence of being on the national team and the experience of being, traveling to Taipei and competing at a big championships. So it wasn't even until the fall that year that we made the switch. But I think by then I already had a lot of confidence in Rich's ability as a coach and our like level of trust between each other. And I'm only 5'6", so I think I understood too, like, that the glide wasn't gonna be my big entry into the international scene, because most girls who glide are fairly tall, and there's a lot more that sometimes you just don't have the right body shape. You can still get away with it, but so yeah, I already had a lot of trust in Richard. So when we made the switch, of course, we knew it was going to be an undertaking, and we kind of had decided at the beginning that the year was going to be whatever it was going to be. It was going to be used as a learning year, and if things went well, that was great, and if they didn't, it was going to be kind of that bridging the gap. And it was only maybe a month or so in, I actually PB'd. So that gave me a little bit more confidence pulling through. But throughout the year, there was definitely a lot of highs and lows. My consistency level was basically in the toilet. I would come out in one meet, I would throw really, really well, 16, whatever. And then there would be meets that I actually threw 14 meters just because I didn't quite have, the technical down. Things were all over the place. It was all brand new. So going through that portion was really challenging mentally, but I think just knowing in the back of my head that it was the right move, and having seen just like little, glimmers of hope through there, it really kept me focused and on track.
And what would you say, and Brittany, feel free to chime in as well, but so athletes looking to make a switch, that switch or a switch like that, what would you say to the younger athletes kind of considering, making switches like that?
Oh, yeah, so I was going to chime in there, but based on Sarah though, she said, she's not tall enough to be a glider, but she's also not strong enough to be a glider. And it's not anything personal. Like, her strengths are in her power and her speed. So why glide when you're super fast and explosive, right? You don't need to be super strong to spin and throw really far in women's shot put. You need to be at a baseline. And then if you're like me too, I'm a speed power thrower as well. I'm fairly strong, but my benefits are through my speed, and so is she. So it was easy for her to think about it and make that decision to switch, right? So like all these gliders in the top in the world, they basically can stand throw as far as they glide. Yeah, so it's really just a bench press, right? They have over 300-pound bench presses. Like, my PB is 264. and and I can throw just as far as them, and they're over 300. So definitely the speed factor for both of us. And to go back to the New Brunswick thing, I remember Richard coming home from that, and he showed me the video of her spinning, and I was like, she's going to be a spinner. Like the first day, it was so much better than her glide. So yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Sarah, did you want to follow up on that at all?
Yeah, so I guess like Britt said, that was a lot of the decision factor too. Like she said, like I do have a lot of other assets that really focused into being a spinner versus a glider. So I guess if you're thinking in terms of making a big change, whether it's within in throwing between events or even within events, like switching techniques, you really gotta sit down and evaluate like what your strengths and weaknesses are. And it would be like super helpful if you can have some guidance in that. Like, I mean, I definitely didn't make that decision on my own. And it was prompted, but in terms of if you do make that decision, you really do just have to stick with it. There will be time like that you recognize like, maybe this isn't for me. Longer term, you'd figure out like, I'm not seeing the advantages that I want to. I was fortunate to see like a really short return on that. I had like a 2.2 meter PB that year. So like that's a bit different of a situation, but there were definitely times at the beginning of that season when, I was throwing significantly less than my PB with the glide, and you start to question, whether you're going to be able to get it, whether you're going to be able to, figure it out long term. And I guess you really got to stick with it. I trained really hard that year, traveling back and forth from Windsor to Toronto to work with Richard, doing double practices sometimes when I was there. But you've got to give it enough time to see if the switch is worthwhile. But definitely having a coach who believes in you and thinks that that's a good switch for you too is a big difference.
Yeah. And then what I would say about the switching for younger kids and stuff like that, just because Sarah and I are spinning and we're excelling, doesn't mean you have to copy us and be like us. And it's not anything rude. It's just, every athlete's different, right? So there are actually some athletes that are rotationally challenged. They just can't get it. And that's okay, because maybe the glide would be better suited for you, right? So it's just determined based on your body type, how fast you are, how strong you are, how tall you are, and how much of, and like so there's two different types of throwers. There's an athlete and then there's a thrower, right? That it seriously is a thing, right? So for Sarah and I, we had a long-term development plan where we both were playing a whole bunch of different sports, and we learned those skills at a young age. So it was easy for us to pick up the rotation because we had quick feet, we're very agile, that kind of thing, right? But there's some athletes, some throwers that never really played a whole bunch of different sports, but they're really great throwers, right? So it just depends on how you are as an athlete, and hopefully you can get a coach that can guide you in the right direction.
Yeah. On top of that too, just would like to, reiterate that I was a glider for like 8 years prior to making that switch. So I had like a lot of the main foundations of throwing down before I made the switch. So that I think really helped me ease into the spin. And definitely there's lots of times where I'm very happy that I was a glider for those years, because I did develop a lot of really good skills gliding. So there's nothing wrong with being a glider, and you can do it. It just depends on the type of athlete you are, like Britt said.
I'm biased to the situation, because if you see me glide, it's horrible. I could not get any better in the glide. Like I threw 1298 or 1220, 1220. I was not getting any better. I wasn't figuring it out. If I stayed in the glide and I didn't find the spin, I don't think I would have been a world-class shot putter. No way. So it was just funny how I figured it out, because I was pretty good at discus, right? I was very, very at a younger age. Like I could figure it out. The rotation was easy, but with the glide, I wasn't getting any better. And then it was kind of funny. So Shane has cerebral palsy. So he can't really demonstrate the spin as well. Like he would try to, but like, you know, he has limitations, which is fine. And we had a training partner, Anojin, and he actually went to Richard after, and he was learning the spin. And Shane was like, I was like, I can show him that. I can do it better than that, right? I can do it better than Anojin. So I picked up, and Shane's like, oh, really, you can? And I was like, yeah, I can. So I picked up the shot put, and I did what he asked, and he was like, it went like 2 meters further. He was like, can you do that again? So I did it again, and because he told me he would never teach me how to spin. Women shouldn't spin in the shot put. So I don't know. When people tell me I can't do something, I do.
You are bringing to do it.
So.
That's so interesting. So yeah, it sounds like, you know, I think that's a really good message. It's about optimizing, you know, who you are as an athlete to ensure that what you're doing is best. And you know, I like, you know, Sarah, your message as well of you know, even if you're a glider or you start off as a spinner, you know, you can make that switch, and over time you really feel out what's best for you as a thrower. Mm-hmm. That's fantastic, and I think that's very funny that women shouldn't spin.
Yeah, there's so many people that say that, but now you look at the world class stage, and almost all of us spin. Mm-hmm. The top 8. You know, there's
just took one.
It's weird because the gliders win. Yeah, the gliders have won every single like world championship for women in the last, I don't know how many years. We got to change that.
I was just gonna say let's change that next year when we can. When we're back going. Great. So I went a little longer there than I wanted to, but I thought that was a really fantastic dialogue. Totally fine. We did have a bunch of questions come in from the registrants. So I just want to go through a few of them, and then we had a couple come in as we were chatting. So I want to start with one that I really like.
Uh-oh. Bye.
One that I really love. That was a cliffhanger.
Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, maybe I'll take over and maybe just ask you some questions that you might be comfortable with.
Okay.
Sarah, I know, and Brittany as well, we received a lot of questions about your guys' training. And I guess one of the main themes that we got was, how have you guys stayed physically fit, and how have you stayed motivated during this time, you know, with the postponement of the Olympics and things kind of being uncertain for competitions? What's really motivated you guys to push through that training during this time? Either one of you can start first.
Do you want to go, Brett?
Oh, sure. For me, I had nothing really, like, there was a lot of introspection during this time. Like, you know, the whole focus was on the Olympic Games this year, so I didn't really do anything else in my life other than track. I didn't have a job. I wasn't going to school. Like, there was a lot of things, right? So it was much a kick in the face in a way, where I realized that I was pretty stagnant in my life. So this gave me an opportunity to start doing other things to set me up in the future. So I was trying to keep busy, but you know, having to be cooped up in the house for a whole month, that wasn't going to work for me. I have to be active or I'll go insane. I'll get stir crazy. So I did everything in my absolute power to make sure I could set up a proper training environment. So what we did was, at first we were trying to figure out if we could travel to different circles, but I don't have a car, so that wasn't going to work out. So I was fortunate enough that my uncle and my aunt live in Breslau, which is just outside of Guelph, and they live in a farmhouse, and they have a lot of land. They rent it out, but besides the point, the landlord said, sure, you can build a shot put circle and she can throw. So we built it out of wood, and we built a tow board and everything, and I was able to throw even in -4 weather. You know, I don't know what motivated me to do that, but you know, I had to do it, so I was out there. And I was fortunate enough to have a high school teacher that I still keep in contact with. He sells a lot of fitness equipment, so he had a lot more. He has so much in his house, and he gave me a barbell and a significant amount of weights, so that I was able to set it up in the living room and get my training in. So and Sarah had a similar experience. I got to make the circle off of her. So
that's awesome. We saw all of your posts and stuff on Instagram of your handmade circle. That was awesome.
Yeah, I was pretty proud of it. I didn't do any work. My uncle did it all, but I was proud that I screwed everything in and I painted it. So
nice. What about you, Sarah?
Yeah, for me, mine's been sort of a development over the last 5 months. I mean, same as Britt, when things kind of all fell apart, you sort of question, you know, what am I going to do now? Like, that's what you basically carved out the year for. I mean, we've been doing it and we plan on doing it much longer than just for this year, but it was such an important year that was like the sole focus of it. So when that got pulled out from under the rug, like you're sitting there wondering like, okay, now I have to keep going. For me, a lot of the motivation stems from like the fact that I hoped that I would still get to compete this year. We were hoping to go to Europe still if things got resolved. So like, I think a lot of that motivation helped pull me through like the middle portion. And now that like things have been fully canceled and we're now hoping to compete in Ontario, that was a big factor for me, is like just getting back, but also knowing that you can't really, it's going to be my first Olympic Games and I don't want to lose all this time. So motivation for me was really, you know, how can I use this to come out a better athlete?
Yeah, for sure. Nothing is going to take away from that first Olympic experience, right? Yeah. So I'll pass it back to Colton. He's back online here.
Sorry,
yeah.
I just want to say one more thing. I'm sorry. The other thing that was really great for both of us is that we had a really optimistic coach. So Richard was positive that we were still going to have the Olympics. And then when that got canceled or postponed, he was really positive we were going to go to Europe. And then when that started falling apart, he was really positive that we were going to have some meets in Ontario. So I had him keeping us accountable, and I think that was really important.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. I apologize. My internet just cut out there, and of course drops the call. Emily, thank you for stepping in there. I wanted to, the question I was actually going to ask, and I thought it was a really good one. You know, we were talking a little earlier about how you know, different bodies are good for spinning, for gliding. But as two female shot putters, you know, obviously bodies can be very different than what the stereotypical female body, you know, should look like, people say. You know, how have you dealt with the body image issues, you know, or just body image in general as a thrower, you know, growing up and now being where an elite athlete where you guys are today?
Yeah. I speak about this quite a bit. I try to throw it in to a lot of interviews that I have with the media because I think it's super important. As a female shot putter, this is the reason why I didn't want to do it in high school, was for the fact that it was a big body image issue. I liked playing soccer because, you know, it's just a different body type, right? Like you have a different, you don't have to be as muscular, right? You can fit that media, like you can fit the description of what's good in the media, right? For body type. So I was very resistant against being a shot putter because I was already kind of like a tomboy in a way, right? So I didn't want to get picked on even more. So that's why I resisted it. But you know, when you are given a gift, an athletic ability and a gift, you have to take that opportunity and use your body type to get you to where you want. So I saw the opportunity of being able to be an Olympian, and I was given this wonderful gift of having big bones and being tall and being able to put on muscle and being strong and being fast. So it was a no-brainer for me, even dealing with body image problems. So,
yeah. For myself, I know very similar to Britt in the sense, like I was already a bit like tomboyish, not a huge girl in high school, but like bigger than most, I would say, of my friends and everything like that. But mine more stemmed around the idea I put on muscle really, really quickly. And when I first went to university, my lifting, I hadn't really done a lot of lifting prior to that. So changing, that changed my body type a lot. Going from, going to the gym, doing, some dumbbell stuff, nothing like big, crazy weights like I would say our programs are now. My body type changed really quickly, and I put on a lot of muscle over those 4 years, and then even more so now. And I usually deal, like, everybody in their life has, feels the need to comment on, no matter where we go on, that portion. And like for a woman, like that's not typically seen as like feminine to have like big biceps or big quads or to be like this big broad shouldered tall woman. Tall more so for Britt, not me. And it's really hard because that's something that like allows you to do what you do, but then you've got all these, outside influences coming at you, and it starts to really make you question and be timid and hesitant. Like I used to hate the gym. So it's taken a long time for me to like really grow to love being muscular, and like the idea of, all of that is like a sign of strength and how well you're doing. So it's just been a bit of a challenge for both of us in different ways, and all the same.
Yeah. And sorry, the last thing is like, I know a lot of people in high school, like a lot of women in high school or females, like the whole boys issue, right? So if you're already in a male dominated sport and you're already like, if you're getting too much muscle and you're more manly, you're not gonna get a boyfriend maybe, right? But what you realize, if I could tell myself in high school, is that like if a guy doesn't like you for who you are, then what's the point, right? But there will be guys that will see the positive in what you do, and it won't matter. And they'll see you for you and not what you look like. And we don't have to look like this for the rest of our life, right? So we're just using our body right now to do what we have to do. So,
I really just want to point out, I love what Sarah said, that the body type you guys have allows you to compete at an elite level, and that's the body type that allows you to be world champions and Olympians, and that's all that should matter.
Yeah, if certain men or boys don't see that, then they're not worth it. So, and I know that it's hard to tell someone in high school that, but like I said, if I could tell myself, you have to go through it yourself, but if I could tell myself in high school this, I would have been way better off. So
yeah, it's all a learning experience, but you really do, it is really about like learning to love the body that you're in. And it's hard, but it does happen. You will grow to love it.
And social media, it happens too. Like I've had men go out of their way, mostly men, to go out of their way, and it's not all men, but some of them have gone out of their way to call me fat, to call me a man, to like critique my lifting. You didn't get that deep enough, because it kills their ego, right? Because I'm lifting a lot more than they can, so they have to feel the need to like put me down, which is not cool, right? So yeah, if you're a man on or a woman on this call, please don't go out of your way to hurt people on social media. It's not cool.
And I appreciate the candid responses. I know it can certainly be a sensitive topic, but being candid about it, and as role models for so many young men and women, across the country, I think those are really important messages. And I mean, you guys are the very top of the top echelon of the sport. So certainly everything you've done to this point has paid off, and I think it's fantastic. So I really appreciate that, how candid those responses were. But I will go to something a little lighter. One thing question that came in was with regards to training. And so we've talked a little bit about your progressions and how you've changed throughout the years in throws. But how much time do you spend, visualizing and really thinking about the mental aspect of what you're doing? Because it's so easy as an athlete, you go and you throw and you throw and you throw, and then you go to the gym and you lift, and you're exhausted. But we all know that there's a very significant portion of performance comes down to mental toughness, people say, or how you deal with stress differently. So do you guys have any specific things that you do prior to a big meet, or any mental preparation techniques that you lean on to practice?
I think this is like a journey, right? Like the motivation part, I think that comes from within. And if you have it, you have it. If you don't, you don't. You'll have to figure out, if you don't have that internal motivation, you'll have to find external sources to motivate you. I have that internal motivation, so I love competing, and so I don't really need anyone to motivate me. But the visualization and the meditation and those sort of things, I am now realizing that we have to work on it, because it only got me so far not to work on it. But if I'm gonna be an Olympic gold medalist or a medalist, I need to work on this. So we're actually actively working on this right now. And then I know that Sarah has started that as well.
Yeah, so that was, I'll say, like, probably one of the biggest changes that I made this year, coming into 2020, was I switched sports psychologists, and found one that really, we have a really good connection and we work really well together. And she's very big into visualization and relaxation and meditation techniques. So I've had a really good opportunity I've been working for about a year now, so to really, I'd say, zone in on some of those areas. And one of the big thing is I usually do a little 10-minute meditation in the morning. I use either the Headspace app or the Stop, Breathe, Think. I think it's now My Life, which you can actually get through CSIO and Game Plan partnerships, I think, which has been really good. I find that it really just starts my day off well. But then, yeah, taking visualization the next step, like I've been able to, practice that throughout the last however many months. And it's actually now something that I bring into competitions between throws. So just stopping and taking a second to reflect on not what throw just happened, not whatever you just did in the circle, but you just visualize very quickly, and it's very easy for shot put. It only takes less than 5 seconds to throw the shot usually. You just do a quick one of what you want to do, and I've found that very helpful moving forward. But it's taken a lot of practice to be able to pull that out really quickly during competition.
Yeah, and I think it's important during injury. So when I broke my foot, I was at a commission for at least 3 months, right? And it's hard to come back from, especially in a technical event where you have a lot of rhythm and that kind of thing. You lose it all. Like I literally went back to like high school Brittany. I had to work my way back up. It felt like I didn't know how to throw at all. I was not the Olympian. I was a high school athlete just starting back again. So what Richard got me to do was to try and visualize, the throw during the injury. So it's kind of like I'm practicing, but I'm practicing in my mind, and it made it a lot easier to come back. So yeah, through injury, it's definitely important. And, there's on the Headspace app, there's also a course on meditation for injury and getting through an injury. So highly recommend the Headspace app. We both use it. It's amazing.
Yeah, I've heard of that one, but I've never checked it out, so we'll do that. And Brittany, it sounds like based on that story from Shane, that someone just has to say you can't win the Olympic Games, and then you got a good chance.
See, Richard, that's what you're doing wrong. I think he's still on the call. He's got to tell me I can't do it. He keeps telling me I can.
Reverse psychology, right? Psychology 101 right there. Perfect. We've got time for one more, and I actually had a question come in before I had dropped my call. Emily, is it still in the chat by chance?
Yeah. Are you referring to the Masters athlete question?
Yeah. If you don't mind, I thought that was a good one.
Yeah, so we had a master's athlete write in saying she's new to the sport. What would you recommend, glide versus spin? And we kind of touched on this a little bit. So which would you recommend and why? What would the advantages be of both?
Yeah, I guess it kind of depends on what your goal as a master's athlete is. And, the spin is very hard to learn. So in my opinion, I think a lot of master's athletes do multiple events. So maybe just keep it simple and learn the glide or the step back. Because if you start trying to like screw around with the spin, you might not get the results that you want. So that would be my advice, but I don't know if Sarah has a different opinion to that.
My advice would lean more towards the glide as well. I find it's a lot easier to get a good solid base, to get a really good push. So with the spin, there's a lot more that can kind of go wrong. And when you're practicing, it requires like a lot of repetition to be able to do it consistently the same every time. So it does take a lot longer to be able to see that and that impact the results of like your labor. But with the glide, I find it gives you like the opportunity. You usually have like a good solid base before you push the shot. So most of the time you have a lot more consistency, and you can apply a little bit more force through the throw, just because it all does come from the bottom. And I find a lot of the times when people learn the spin, it's a lot of jumping and a lot of, your feet aren't in the right place when you're about to throw the shot, and it's just all over the place and you don't have that stability. So, I mean, right.
The glide's more consistent, hands down. Spin's hit or miss. You either hit it. I can either throw 16 meters or I can throw 19 meters in the same meet, right? So for a master's athlete, I believe that, or even younger athletes, for consistency, I think it's beneficial to learn the glide first.
Yeah.
I think you learn the glide, and then if it's not working, you learn the spin. But yeah.
You'll take a lot of those key learnings from the glide with you to the spin when you go. If you choose to. But there's definitely, like it's a lot easier to pick up and be competitive at early on.
Very good. Very good. And last question for me, and I'll just ask you guys 15, 20 seconds. I really like this one, and I think it's a good one to end on. Favorite moment so far in your careers? I think Sarah, you kind of touched on one, about qualifying, but I'll leave it to you both. Favorite moment in your career so far.
I know what mine is. So
you want to go first, because I'm gonna have to pick between two.
Okay. Well, there's many, but I'd have to say my favorite moment was Pan Am's this year, because that was the first time I ever threw over 19 meters, and I was just missing them the whole time. But then that American, I was in second the whole time, and then this American girl passed me on her second last round or last round, and I wasn't gonna let her steal that silver medal. So I pulled it out of my butt, and on the last throw, Richard doesn't like this, but I'm a last throw gal. So people usually expect it now, I think. And if I don't do it, then it's a shock, but I'm usually able to dial in and zone in and execute on the last throw and steal a lot of medals. So
defense,
Yeah, I just wasn't going to let her steal that from me. And Richard's he expected me to throw 19 meters that meet. And I went over to him on the last, to talk to him after the fifth round. And I just threw 1840, I think. I was building, and he literally just said to me, come on, you're going to ruin my graph. We got to, you're going to ruin the graph. Don't ruin the graph. So, yeah. Because his thing is we have a weekly average, and then if you're above that, you did a great meet, and he has predictions based on numbers, and so he had an idea in his head what I could do, and I knew I could do it too, but he's like, this is it, don't ruin the graph. So that's my favorite moment, I think.
Sarah, number one or number two for you?
I'm gonna have to choose Fisu.
Okay.
This past year. There have been kind of 3 moments in my career that were, they're pretty close to the same. Like, FISU was just it was my first international medal, let alone to come out with gold. So that all else being even was a really big moment for me. But FISU was just such a hard competition. Like, we woke up at 5 a.m., left the boat, traffic and everything is horrible. It took so long to get to the stadium. We qualified, but both no issue. And it was 9, we qualified at 9, I think. Didn't get back to the boat until
noon.
After lunch. Had lunch, we both took a quick nap.
Bad decision. Jumped back up, and we had to leave again by 4 o'clock because we qualified at, I think it was 7 or something like that. And it was just such a gruesome day. I didn't leave the stadium until after midnight that night. After the competition ended, medal ceremony, doping control, and it just felt like such a win because it was everything was just tough. So to be able to come out that day and not getting beat up, I think was a really positive moment on top of the performance. And I'll say something that competition for me was total opposite. It was complete not good at all. And I'll tell Sarah this 100%, she won the mental toughness competition and the competition itself. She was on, and I think at one point I literally told her I don't got this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just knew it. I did not have it. I said, I don't got this. During the final, I said, I don't got this. I said, you go get this because I don't have it. And I was devastated. I was all broken up because I was disappointed in myself, but I was happy for Sarah. But maybe it didn't come off that way, but I was extremely proud of her because, it's just great to have the Canadians keep the World University title. Yeah, we did double back to back. So definitely a highlight for her career. And I think, she gained some pretty positive experiences there. But definitely won the mental toughness. That was the worst competition in my entire life.
Yeah,
I didn't know how I was going to handle that because morning in the heat too, right? We got creamed in the heat. No umbrellas really. So hot, and then we had to all that travel back, no sleep, hardly sleep the night before, and then have to come back at nighttime and do it all over again. Oh, so hard.
And that journey, I'm guessing, to and from, the stadium is not a quick walk or something like that. It's a pretty significant,
No,
travel.
you're in Italy, in Napoli, where their streets they're not meant for buses. So the traffic is ridiculous. There's way too many people, and it was hectic. And we all knew that this was going to happen, but you don't know what's going to happen until you're actually in that position.
Yeah.
So that makes sense that meet was one of her highlights. Because literally she had to go through so many obstacles, and she handled it the best out of anyone, and it's crazy.
Resilience. Either way, going through things like that creates resilience, and it's something you can draw on, in the future, regardless of the outcome. So that's good.
Yeah, well, what's good for her is that now if there's ever an Olympics or World Championships because 2016 in Rio, they did the same thing. It was morning and afternoon session. And if I did the morning and I made the final, I couldn't do it. It would have been so hard for me.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a skill I need to learn, but if she's ever put in that position again, she'll be confident and be able to trust her training that she can do it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Good.
Well, we are a few minutes over, so I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I do appreciate the dialogue. I think, I didn't want to cut anyone off there. So, I appreciate very, very much Brittany and Sarah. Really appreciate you guys jumping in. Richard, he was the one who had originally reached out and recommended you two, and I really appreciate that as well. We really sincerely do wish you guys all the best. I say it every time we have these, but I really think doing these things, connecting with your fans and peers and young up and coming athletes, it's really appreciated from everyone who participates. And you have 20, 30 more fans, or 30 more people who are going to watch you guys that much more closely. So really appreciate the time you've taken to chat with us today.
Yeah, well, I enjoyed it. And the last thing I was going to say is I'm half and half on the social media. Like I really try to put some content out there, but sometimes you have to step back and it's too much. You get too consumed in it. But I don't usually answer DMs because it's just too much for me. It gets me overwhelmed. But maybe I'll go on my story and I'll make a poll and see if you guys can go vote, or you can get other people to go vote on it and see if you would like Sarah and I, or even myself, to set up an Instagram live so that we can answer any other questions that you guys may have, because the DMs are going to be I'd rather talk, instead of having to type everything out. So if you guys would like that, then maybe we can set up an Instagram live at some other point in time so we can answer the rest of your questions. So that's a good idea.
Yeah, that actually sounds fantastic. And we can certainly, help promote that and everything if you guys decide that that's what you want to do. So absolutely. Yeah. So,
but I got to go coach some kid now, and I don't know what Sarah's got to do, but this was amazing. Thank you guys. We both love to do this, and we both love to share our experiences with everyone. So.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you, Sarah. Sarah, did you want to add a comment before we closed?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank everyone, who did join. Like Britt said, both of us love doing this, this kind of stuff. It's good, especially these days. It's so nice to be able to connect with people. And I do love, there's times and places for people to come up to you and ask you questions, but this really opens the door for that. And we're both always more than happy to share our experience in it. We both come from two different kind of sides and have alternative perspectives on different things. And for us to be able to help anyone else who's trying to, get on this pathway. And
yeah, and if you're a young athlete on this call, and you, because we do compete in Ontario and in Canada a fair bit, when we're not traveling. So if you're at a twilight meet with us, and don't talk to us before because we're focused, but after the competition, feel free to come up and take a picture with us or talk to us, because we usually have time after. And I'm not, I could be scary when we're warming up and getting ready for the comp because I'm focused. But afterwards, I'm lovey-dovey. You can come talk to me, ask me questions. I love it. I love helping out younger kids, and it doesn't matter what age you are. So.
Awesome. Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for joining. I know we went a little bit over, so I do apologize for that. But fantastic dialogue, Brittany and Sarah. Again, thank you guys so much. And we'll see you hopefully sooner rather than later around the track and around the circle.
Hopefully.
Okay, guys.
Yeah.
Have a fantastic day.
Bye. Thank you guys.
Bye, guys.